Pakistan's leaders may be patting themselves on the back for mediating peace talks between Washington and Tehran, but the United States' latest move appears to send a very different signal. The US has announced it will close its consulate in Peshawar, saying its diplomats are not safe enough to justify keeping the mission open. Pakistan is playing peacemaker in the Iran war, yet it is still struggling to secure enough LNG cargoes to keep its own lights on and power grid stable. Pakistan is urgently seeking additional liquefied natural gas cargoes for May as power demand surges across the country. Disruptions linked to the Iran war and intense heatwave pressure on Pakistan's power grid have sharply increased LNG requirements for electricity generation. State-run Pakistan LNG Limited has issued a tender for shipments to be delivered in the windows of May 12th to 14th and May 24th to 26th. Pakistan also purchased a spot LNG cargo from the Persian Gulf last month, its first such spot purchase from that region in more than 2 years. The move underscores tightening energy supplies out of Persian Gulf markets amid disruptions and high prices. The ongoing Iran war has choked parts of the Gulf export system, affecting a region that is a major source of global LNG output. Pakistan's challenges appeared to deepen as the United States made a significant diplomatic announcement. On May 5th, Washington said it would permanently close its consulate in Peshawar, citing staff safety and cost considerations. Consular operations are to be shifted to the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad, while missions in Karachi and Lahore will remain open. These developments come as Pakistan plays a key role in mediating ceasefire negotiations between the United States and Iran under the so-called Islamabad Accord process. With peace talks going nowhere, Donald Trump suddenly moves to halt his much-touted Project Freedom in the Strait of Hormuz, signaling a sharp tactical pause in the U.S. Iran showdown. The White House now says American warships will temporarily pull back from active escort duty in Hormuz, easing direct confrontation even as tensions in the waterway remain high. Trump insists the pause in Project Freedom is only for a short period, presenting it as a calculated move rather than a climb down under Iranian pressure. The announcement dropped on Trump's social platform just one day after the operation began, prompting fresh questions about why the mission was dialed back so quickly. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Based on a request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran and additionally, the fact that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom, the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed," unquote. Trump frames the step back as proof that negotiations with Iran are making great progress, hinting that a broader agreement could be within reach. He also credits Pakistan and other mediating nations, saying they urged Washington to ease off militarily to give diplomacy room to work. Even with escorts paused, the U.S. blockade on Iran's port stays firmly in place, keeping economic pressure on Tehran while warships step slightly back from the front line. The abrupt shift has fueled debate over whether Project Freedom actually met its goals, or whether it stalled before it could change realities in Hormuz. The Pentagon, meanwhile, stresses that recent clashes saw Iranian boats, drones and missiles destroyed, portraying the short-lived operation as a battlefield success despite the pause. Donald Trump has announced the launch of Project Freedom, a U.S.-led initiative aimed at helping dozens of merchant ships stranded in and around the Strait of Hormuz, starting from May 4th. Trump described the operation as a humanitarian gesture intended to assist neutral country vessels and their crews caught in the war zone, many of which are running low on supplies while waiting for safe passage. However, U.S. officials later clarified to outlets such as the Wall Street Journal that Project Freedom would not involve direct naval escorts in the way his initial remarks implied. Instead, the White House outlined the creation of a maritime coordination cell that will identify and share safe routes through the strait, clear of mines and high-risk areas, while coordinating with commercial shipping lines and allied navies. This signals a more limited, advisory role for the U.S. military than the image of warships physically shepherding tankers through the choke point that Trump's announcement initially suggested. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "For the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways, so that they can freely and ably get on with their business. Many of these ships are running low on food, and everything else necessary for large-scale crews to stay on board in a healthy and sanitary manner." Unquote. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has confirmed that its forces will begin supporting Project Freedom from May 4th, integrating the initiative into its broader regional maritime security posture. CENTCOM has framed the mission as critical for both regional security and global economic stability, given that the Strait of Hormuz normally carries roughly 1/5 of the world's seaborne oil and LNG traffic. The command says more than 100 land and sea-based aircraft, including maritime patrol planes, fighters, and surveillance platforms, will provide surveillance, protection, and rapid response capabilities along the agreed safe corridors. Multi-domain unmanned systems, such as drones and unmanned surface vessels, will also be deployed to monitor mine-like threats, detect suspicious boats, and enhance maritime domain awareness without fully committing large warships. Around 15,000 U.S. service members across the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman are expected to contribute to Project Freedom, mainly in support, logistics, and intelligence roles, underscoring the scale of the operation even if direct combat is being avoided. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that the offensive stage of United States Operation Epic Fury has officially come to an end.
On the rising oil and gas prices, the president has said that this is a small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon. But 10 weeks in, are we any closer to getting rid of Iran's nuclear material?
Yeah, but look, here's the way to think about Iran, and this is what I described at the very beginning of this. What was Iran's plan? You have to understand what their plan was. Their plan was they were going to build this conventional shield where they would have so many thousands of missiles and drones and rockets that they couldn't be attacked. And behind that conventional shield that they were trying to build, they would then break out and do whatever they wanted with their nuclear program. They no longer have that conventional shield. Okay, we told you guys from the very beginning, and we're very consistent in this messaging. The operation that has concluded was going to destroy their navy. They have no navy left. They don't. Not a navy. They have small boats and Boston whalers, but they don't have a navy left. They don't have an air force. I challenge you. When is the last time you read or heard about an Iranian jet flying anywhere? They don't have an air force. Their missile launching capability has been substantially degraded, and their industrial base, their defense industrial base, has been severely damaged. So their ability to build a shield behind which they could hide their nuclear program was wiped out. That's a very substantial achievement, and that was the purpose of this operation from day one.
Their nuclear material in order for this war to end.
Well, that's one of the topics that needs to be discussed. I don't know about. I think you're linking it. The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this project of freedom. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the president's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to if they ever wanted to dig it out. That has to be addressed, and that's being addressed in the negotiation. I'm not going to go further on what progress has been made on that topic because I don't want to endanger the negotiations, but suffice it to say that the president and this entire team is aware of the centrality of that question, and that will have to be addressed one way or the other.
The fighting were to resume, because you've said that Operation Epic Fury is over. The president also said that the U.S. would bomb them off the face of the earth if they tried to go after U.S. ships. So if the fighting resumes, are you saying that it would resume under Project Freedom? And I ask, as it relates to the War Powers Act.
Yeah, look, the Operation Epic Fury is concluded. We achieved the objectives of that operation. I'm not going to, we're not cheering for an additional situation to occur. We would prefer the path of peace. What the president would prefer is a deal. He would prefer to sit down, work out a memorandum of understanding for future negotiations that touches on all the key topics that have to be addressed, a full opening of the strait so the world can get back to normal. And he preferred that be negotiated through the route that Steve and Jared have been working and that all of us have been supporting. That's the route he prefers. That is so far not the route that Iran has chosen. And so the result has been that the United States has to do something about the fact that we're the only nation on earth that can do anything to open up a lane within the Straits of Hormuz to get product and to rescue these people that are trapped in there. And that's what we're undergoing now. What that may lead to in the future is speculative. I'm not going to speculate about what it would take or what it would do. But look, the message to Iran, these guys are facing, they are facing real catastrophic destruction to their economy, generational destruction to their economy, generational destruction to the wealth of their country, imposed on themselves by the actions that they're taking. They should check themselves before they wreck themselves in the direction that they're going.